A while back, a subscriber named Salvatore requested I review all the Kickboxer movies, and I did. He has a new request for all the Bloodsport movies. You may have noticed that the opening clip is not from Bloodsport, it's from a movie that came out a year later called Bloodfight. That's because we don't review good movies around here, and I've seen Bloodsport about a dozen times, so I can skim through the review of that movie without actually having to watch it. First, we're introduced to our competitors in kinda racist scenes. We are then introduced to our main character, who as a child stole a sword, but the person he stole it from wanted to better the young man and taught him the way of martial arts. Once fully trained, he stretches out his groin, bangs a hot blonde, and enters a secretive martial arts competition known only as the Kumite. The movie's bad guy, Chung Lee, played by Bolo Yoon, beats up Jean-Claude Van Damme's best friend, Ray Jackson, and steals his headband, then wears it during their fight against each other. But of course the hero wins and gets a sword symbolic of how his journey started. This movie is fantastic and has everything. A French guy named Paco, a fat guy beating up a skinny guy, and our villain killing a man. Bloodsport is a terrific movie from 1988 starring Jean-Claude Van Damme. I've seen it about a dozen times. It's completely made up, despite what Frank Dukes may tell you. He made up the story to some reporter who wrote an article about it, became a movie. We talked about Frank Dukes when we reviewed Only the Strong. He turned this into a career being a fight choreographer, despite the fact that he didn't actually know any martial arts. As you may expect, Bloodfight, our main event, is very similar to Bloodsport. It's basically the Kumite, but they have a different name for it.
Welcome to the 1989 World Championship of Free Fighting.
It begins much like Bloodsport, with showing us some of the competitors in the movie. But unlike Bloodsport, where it takes 46 minutes until the Kumite starts, in this movie, it takes just 4 minutes.
Known as the Vietnamese Cobra, representing the traditional Japanese martial art of sumo.
And yes, that is Bolo Yoon as our bad guy again, this time not as Chung Li, but as Chang Li. We also get a montage of who will eventually be our main character, Masahiko Kai. But after just a few fights, we immediately switch to what turns out to be a flashback of an old man watching himself on television compete in a martial arts competition, but instead he is totally watching Paco from Bloodsport. You think I brought up Paco for no reason? He is so obsessed with martial arts and trying to find the next champion that his wife leaves him when he finds a student instead of a real job. And the student immediately turns out to be an asshole, attacking people on the street.
Sensei, kill him! Kill him! Are you one of them?
You'd think he would have known this because he found the kid while he was attacking people on the street, but instead decides to train the kid that was attacked. But he doesn't want to be trained, so our now main character starts chasing him around. Then the kid gets attacked and wants to be trained, but now he only wants to be trained for revenge, and he doesn't want to teach someone skills if they're not going to use them for the martial arts competition, so now the kid starts chasing him. The kid's beautiful girlfriend shows up and begs, "Please don't train my boyfriend. I loved when he was a pussy. I don't want him to get hurt." And that's even before she sees Bolo Yoon kicking people's asses.
I don't want to see you fighting and bleeding again. I can't bear the thought of you getting hurt. You look at me. Do you want to lead this kind of life?
But the old man does not listen, trains him anyways, and it's time for the big battle against Bolo Yoon, Chang Li, the Vietnamese Viper himself. Possibly a Vietnamese Cobra. I didn't really pay that close attention to that part. Well, that went horribly. Yeah, second round, he fights Chang Li and he's fucking dead. He's not coming back, folks. New main character is the old man again. He is driven into depression and becomes a violent alcoholic.
Hey, it's no good. Kai Sensei. Well, if it isn't Mr. Death.
Years ago he was a champion, now he's just a drunken bum. His ex-wife comes by to brag about her new rich husband. His trainer comes by to mock him, but does have a bit of good news that in order to sell tickets, the tournament has invited him to either enter a new trainee to fight Chang Li, or to enter the competition and fight Chang Li for revenge himself. He chooses the latter and begins training. Yeah, that was very Rocky 4-esque of them just going back and forth to high-tech training versus old-style training. But he does get his match against Chang Li, who is wearing the student's headband, and the fight is on! Well, that didn't end how I expected. Nah, I'm kidding. He totally wins. Bloodfight is from 1989 and is a Chinese Hong Kong production starring Sasasuka Kurata and Simon Yam along with Bolo Yoon. And everyone in this movie spoke English and then it was dubbed in Chinese. It was directed by Shuji Goto, who mostly did documentaries on minorities in combat sports, and this was one of his few, if not only, narrative feature films. Both of the main characters in this movie, whose names I will not try to pronounce again, still act. They're still out there in Hong Kong, being side characters in action films. Yeah, it's a fine movie. It's, of course, very similar to Bloodsport, has much less production value, but some of the fights and the makeup on blood in them fights is actually better. So yeah, it gets a little slow in the middle. There are long training scenes of him training someone who's barely even in the movie and just kind of disappears from the film for long periods of time. And then we waste a lot of training on the kid who dies. So, yeah, a lot of wasted time in here. I wish there had been more fights because, as I said, the fights are actually really well done. But the narrative needed to be there, it just wasn't as good as Bloodsport. Thank you for watching. Yes, I used to own Bloodfight on DVD, and as always, I shall try to do better next time. Stay tuned next time for Bloodsport 2.